that, buddy? That's not good.
Hi, thanks for tuning in to watch this video. Regular viewers of this channel will recognize this mine. I decided to do a photo shoot complete with proper panel lighting of this beautiful epic hoist, which is located deep in this coal mine. In this photograph, you can see the manway slope going down into the abyss. Notice the stark contrast between the coal vein and the top rock. Here, the Anthracite Coal King is posing for the camera in the main haulage slope. The rail is intact, which is a rare treat. We'll be seeing a mine hoist in a bit, but it's important to note that this slope would have once had its own dedicated hoist, which was located outside on the surface, but has long been destroyed. It likely was scrapped in 1960, when this coal mine closed, unfortunately. The slope is steep, which is hard to convey in photographs. This set of tracks was the main transportation route for the haulage of coal going up and out of the mine. Once out of the coal mine, the cars were sent to the breaker to be dumped of their coal. Then, the anthracite began to be processed, cleaned, and sent to market. These steel drums secured to the roof were wire rope guide rollers that prevented the braided wire rope hoisting the coal cars up and down the slope from coming into contact with the roof. Notice the steep rail gradient. It gets much steeper than this in several sections of the slope. Once bustling, loud, lively portion of this once great coal mine will now forever be silent, which is rather ironic. In some spots of the slope, due to the steep gradient, the track ties almost act as rungs of a ladder while we traverse over them. This is a rather lovely looking photograph. Here we are looking down the slope as we begin our long descent. The lack of roof collapse is a nice treat for us. We pause for one quick glance upward. No turning back now, we're committed. Next to this wire rope guide roller, we see an electric buzzer still in place. This is how the men in the mine and the hoist engineer would have communicated with one another. Because they couldn't see each other, they used a simple electric buzzer signal setup similar to Morse code to communicate the movement of cars and machinery. For instance, 3 buzzers often meant to lower slowly, while 1 meant to stop. It was rather ingenious if you think about it. Here we are looking down into the dark abyss as we begin our trek downward. Going down the slope, you can see how the mine car wheels made impressions into the surrounding muck. It looks as though this was just done hours prior, even though the last car was sent down here in 1960. This is like viewing living history. In the distance here, the tracks continue their downward angle, but at a much more steep gradient. It's similar to a roller coaster-like drop-off. Here in this photo, we've arrived at the bottom of the slope. The rail we traveled down is in the foreground. Notice how steep it in fact is. There's another set of tracks that is a rail siding which also happens to travel in front of the mine hospital. You can also see a coal pillar in place, which is what actually holds the roof up in a coal mine. Walking down the rails, you'll pass this amazing mine office. It could have been the foreman's office, or simply a break room for the miners. Regardless of who it catered to, it's rare in construction for the anthracite mines, and the wooden floors inside are even still intact. The wooden beams attached to the outside once would have held the overhead trolley wires for the electric mine locomotives. Look at this door, absolutely remarkable it survived in these humid conditions for so long, it's virtually mint. It still closes fine and it even locks. I once explored this mine alone at night time. What an experience that was. I do not recommend, however. Across from the office, and on the other side of the two rail tracks, is the mine hospital. This small, unassuming concrete building undoubtedly saw horrific scenes while it was in use. Looking back towards the bottom of the slope, hospital is to the left, office is to the right. We have made it to our destination. This is probably the nicest view you'll ever see in any abandoned Pennsylvania anthracite coal mine, the coveted Mint Vulcan Iron Works hoist. We have traveled a considerable distance from the hospital area to arrive here. I took this photograph in a small little tunnel cut out directly through coal. Here, the hoist operator would have traveled through every shift to get to this work spot. It's a small spot going up a few workings distance at a slightly steep pitch from the nearby mine car repair shop. This is the granddaddy of all coal mine hoists, if you ask me. This hoist would have serviced a now flooded internal slope similar to the large haulage slope previously pictured. All of the paint and even the original lubrication grease is still on this machine. Pretty much everything in regards to this hoist is frozen in time. It's truly remarkable. It almost feels like it would turn on. What an amazing sight to behold deep underground. You can see these steel rings secured into the roof. These were the anchor points for when they dragged the hoist into place piece by piece here. The amount of work and brute force required for that would have been substantial. We are standing near where the hoist operator would have been. Notice how the wire rope is still wound around the hoist drum. What an impressive setup of gears and other moving parts. It would have been something else to see this operating. The chains and gears are all oiled and greased up and are ready to go for the next shift, which will never occur. For machinery to be preserved like this in a Pennsylvania anthracite coal mine is almost unheard of. This sector of the mine even smells like the 1940s and 1950s. It's extremely dry in this section of the mine, which has allowed for such preservation. The mining engineers might have picked this location purposely for that reason, one can imagine. The hoist was electrically powered. It's interesting to note that the coal companies had their own power plants for their breakers. They burned their own mined coal, and this powered the entire mine network, both on the surface and also underground. So this hoist was powered from the coal in this mine. Only superficial rusting has occurred to this machine since the mine closed in 1960. That's a true testament to the quality and craftsmanship of the employees of Vulcan Iron Works. Here I am standing at the spot where the hoist operator would have once been while operating the machine. Someone stood here shift after shift for decades, most likely operating this contraption. He had to be mentally sharp and always paying attention. He actually had a chair to sit on which has since rotted away. What a beautiful series of photographs. I'm glad to be able to show you this piece of local coal mining history. You can see the small manway access tunnel on the right, which was for the workers to enter this chamber. Some comic books, newspapers, and magazines are on top of this small table-like portion of the hoist setup. As with many other coal mines that have been abandoned when we find them, it seems that the workers thought they'd be back, They often left many personal items behind. It really doesn't get much better than this in regards to abandoned mine exploration. I mean, just look at this. This machine was an absolutely critical part of the mining process. The first generation of hoists were steam-powered, which were later retrofitted for electricity. Hoists were used also for the movement of cages in vertical haulage shafts. Hoists have been around in mining since the American Civil War era from what I've read, perhaps even earlier. Some miners graffiti. For the longest time, I thought this said whore, but it doesn't. It once had someone's name followed by was here, however someone scribbles out that person's name and the was. They then took the E in here and made it an O. You can see that whore originally said here. I see it now actually. It says Mike was here. Must have been some sort of beef or banter amongst the miners. Some old school trolling. Here we see 1954 Walton on the roof near the hoist. Remember that name because we see it here again with an extra clue. Here we see graffiti from 1952 with two names. Looks like Ed's last name is McCowney. Thank you to my longtime subscriber Dixie for figuring it out. Thanks to another subscriber of mine, Dave Williamson, who found information on Morgan Walton. He was born in 1902 and passed away in 1986. Interestingly, there's an abbreviation for engineers under their names, so one can deduce that these men were the hoist engineers. It's almost like they knew we'd be here investigating their old workspace decades later, and they wanted to be known. Here we have the electric motor for the hoist. Notice this wild-looking mold that grows inside of it. What an impressive life form that mold is. The other side of this magnificent machine. Literally looks like it was just placed here. It's probably been down here for about 105 years or more. At this rate, one can assume that the hoist will last in its mint-like state for countless years to come. The hoist is stamped Vulcan Iron Works, Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, USA. Vulcan Iron Works also constructed narrow-gauge steam train locomotives, electric mine locomotives, shaft cages, shaking conveyors, and other crucial mining equipment. In fact, their locomotives are still known throughout the world and still survive in places. Unfortunately, Vulcan Iron Works has been out of business for some time now. This small can was placed here for catching oils and or grease which were used to lubricate the moving parts. The transformer room is behind the brick wall back here. You literally feel like the miners are coming back from their lunch break while you are in here. That's how well preserved this area is. Alice Chalmers manufactured this motor. Look at that mold, however. How it grew with all of the lubricant grease attached to this machinery is pretty impressive. A shame this antique motor is just sitting down here though. Here are some inspection dates written in chalk. I'm not sure if this was for the electrical setup, the hoist, or a general mine inspection. Some electrical related photos. The meter here reads 8,496 kilowatt hours, and to multiply that by 100, that gives us a total of 849,600 kilowatt hours logged. It also has stamped on it 2,400 volts and 200 amps. I assume this had some decent power to it. A calendar from 1953. Another calendar, this one from March of 1960. A Dick Tracy comic from the Philadelphia Inquirer. If you are curious, it is from Sunday, August 9th, 1953. Here are those anchor points in the roof again, which were for dragging the hoist up an internal slope in order to get it into place. Here's another one of those old coffee cans that was used to catch the lubrication grease coming off of the gears. The whole room would have filled with slippery grease if they didn't somehow collect it. I'll stop talking now and let you immerse yourself with these photos. We are about to depart the hoist room now. Going down the workings parallel to the hoist, you can see the steel-braided wire rope of the hoist resting on a wire rope guide wheel. This too looks mint and is still perfectly painted and lubricated. Just down from the hoist is the mine car repair shop and equipment repair room. Let us take a look inside. What an epic steel door which still closes and opens just fine. Usually metal in these anthracite coal mines is destroyed by the humidity and water. Not here though. Sweet, an industrial porcelain lampshade is still just chilling in place. Shelving and lockers are also down here. This metal retaining wall looks like it was placed here not long ago, yet it is probably 70 to 80 years old, maybe even older. Just look at that. It looks like a modern mine right there. Not one from the 1800s era. Look at how cool this is. Again, a shame this has to spend eternity down here alone in this mine. There are still nuts and bolts and other miscellaneous parts on the shelves. I even found some intact paperwork on a shelf here. These doors are cool. There is rail underneath them leading from an outside tunnel to the inside of the repair shop. Electric locomotives would have driven in here in order to be worked on. These doors still have their silver paint on them. Here's some more electrical infrastructure. Notice the pillar of anthracite coal right behind the electrical setup. Remnants of a small car. There's a small tracked inclined plane nearby. Perhaps this was a counterweight car for the hoist. I'm not certain, however. The car appears to have come crashing down the plane, however, and ended up here in pieces. Maybe this was a small car for ferrying parts up to the hoist if it wasn't a counterweight car. An interesting relic, however. Check out this gnarly mole. It's eating up some wood, it appears. This lovely wheel is near the small car. It's been a good trip for photography and documenting history. It's time to leave, however. Glancing over at the hospital quickly on our way towards the bottom of the slope, I will pass on going in there for this trip. The energy doesn't seem inviting. Okay then. Too bad we can't hitch a ride on a coal car going up and out of the slope. The climb out is always a fantastic cardio workout. Anyone who has ever been here will probably agree with me on that. Just imagine how many other hoists like this one have not been discovered yet. This mine would have made for a great public tour mine. A real shame it is abandoned. Well, I hope you liked this video. Please be sure to like and subscribe if you have not already. As always, thanks for watching.